Welcome to the Anchored Podcast. Have you ever wondered how to stay grounded in your faith amid heartache, confusion, and a seemingly mass exodus of people leaving the faith? My name is Roseanne Dawes.
And I'm Stephanie Frankham. And we've discovered that being anchored in Jesus Christ is the key to navigating these rough waters. Join us as we explore how their faith and covenants have helped each of our guests navigate the storms of life. Welcome back to the Anchored Podcast.
Today we have our guest, and her name is Gigi Turley.
Now, you remember a while back that we had Audie. Audie came on. She was our TikTok gal. And this is her beautiful mother that she continued to share stories about and to testify about of her love for her and the example that she was to her. And I don't know if you remember, but Gigi and I have been partners in crime, I guess. No, we started out together in a women's group where we became accountability partners because there were four of us that were authors. Anyway, we had an amazing time. We wrote a book together and we started a publishing company together. So this is one of my nearest and dearest friends. And we just wonder, can you just put yourself in context for our listeners? Tell us just a little bit about yourself.
All right. So again, my name is Gigi Turley, and I'm originally from Peru. I was born and raised in Peru, came to the United States when I was 18 years old, and got married while still was young. And I have four beautiful children and 13 grandchildren.
Isn't that the best?
The best. It is the best. And I am very involved. I'm in my children's life. So I am I am a hands-on grandma.
Love
And
it.
so in fact, we're going to be traveling this weekend. We're leaving to Peru with six of our grandchildren. And we're going to have a wonderful experience at an event that we're going to be going to with the Tabernacle Choir in their world tour. And their dad is going to be singing, one of the children's dad. So we're going to be there. And it is a huge celebration. So we're excited that we
Gigi,
can do
what's
this
the
together.
name of the Spanish thing that you do your family does every year with the church?
Luz de las Naciones. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And it's amazing the talents. And when we did our first book launch, our book launch together for Collective Brilliance,
Yeah.
she had her grandchildren come and they were playing these musical instruments and oh my word, and they are so classy. Anyway, it's just kind of you look at it and think, oh, I don't know that I could ever be as amazing as Gigi, but she's because she is the icon of motherhood. Anyway, she's amazing.
Thank you. You're very sweet. I think the Lord gives you experiences in your life where it prepares you for the next event in your life. And motherhood was very, very present in my life. So having wonderful grandmothers and a beautiful mother, and the tragedy with the passing of my sister that allowed me to be kind of a mother in a way to my niece and nephew, that prepared my heart to even love more the role of a mother. So motherhood has been my love and passion. So it's something that you can call a tragedy can be your greatest blessing. So that's a little bit about me.
Love that perspective. You know, being I'm babysitting my grandson today and tomorrow. Just kind of, it's been one of those things of like learning how to embrace that and just because I'm just so grateful for the privilege. I'm grateful that I'm available to do that. And because I was a teacher before, but to me, it's not been like a natural thing to just want to babysit all the time. But I just admire those who it just comes so natural, and I'm jealous of those relationships. So that's just such a beautiful thing. So thank you for sharing that and introducing yourself. Gigi, go ahead and just tell us your story.
Like I said, I was born in Peru, and in a normal, you can say normal family with good parents, and was not a member of the church. And still, I grew up in a family environment where my dad was very much the patriarch of the home, and my mom was the um, we call it ama de casa, and is in I love the how we say it in Spanish, is the one that loves her home. That's the translation. In English is homemaker. But I like the other how it sounds, because she really was. She was really someone that loved her home. So when I was 13 years old, the missionaries came to our lives, and the message that they brought was so powerful. It was inspiring for my dad to hear that families can be forever. That was just like, wow. And the relationship, what they taught us about the reality of God the Father and Jesus Christ was something that we've never heard before. We were Catholics, but the Catholic people that go to a wedding or a baptism, once in a while, um, until my brother was in an accident, and they became more devoted Catholics. But for us, at least for me, the way that I was seeing religion was you go to church and to worship a statue kind of a thing. But God was not real, really, but it was something that a higher power, I guess, that you respect, but there was not a close relationship with a God as we know it now. So anyway, for my dad to understand the plan of salvation and who God was and Jesus Christ was a life-changing experience. Being a patriarch of the home and a family man, we started doing family home evenings as a family, and that became very much part of us. When we became members of the church, the family, which of course they were not members of the church, they kind of turned their backs on us, and which again, sometimes, something that could look like a tragedy could be a blessing. And we still loved them and kept in touch with them, but uh, our lives became more about family and the church. So we became very, very involved with the church. And so I was baptized when I was 13 years old. And the theme of family also became very, very dear to my heart. At that time, around that time, there was a show on TV, Little House on the Prairie. And I was in love with Michael Landon and Pa Ingalls. And I was just enchanted with their lives and their stories and how they overcame challenges and their faith and all of these things. So that was that took place. That became something that became very real in my life later on. But anyway, family became kind of like the theme for us, and being a strong family already became stronger. And when I was about 16 years old, my sister was diagnosed. She was married already, and she had a little girl, 3-year-old, and an 18-month-old little boy. She was diagnosed with leukemia. And my dad was trying to find everything possible to help her heal. And anyway, one of the things that he was told by my cousin here in the United States, bring her here to the United States. They have a state-of-the-art hospital where they can see her and do a bone marrow transplant. And he did all the preparations. My father did all preparations to get her to the hospital for this medical care. And everything was ready to go, and which was a very extremely difficult thing to do at the time, because we lived in a tumultuous time in Peru with terrorism. So they were not letting people out of the country like that. So things were happening a little like in a magical way, mysterious way, I don't know. But so my sister passed away. We were not able she was not able to come, but my dad at that time had a change of heart, something that he wouldn't have done, a decision he wouldn't have made. I don't think at another time in his life, which was, is it time for my family to uproot my family? And so he tried to do the paperwork and see if that was even possible, and things were unfolding. And so in the period of time of 2 weeks after my sister passed away and all the paperwork started, being done, we were actually able to leave. So I see the story of my dad like the story of Lehi, and and the Soraya and all the kids that come across the ocean. So that was a miracle in itself that we were able to do that. And so again, in all this time, I helped my mother with the little kids, and never was a burden. It was always something that I loved doing, in taking care of my niece. And so a year and a half later, we came to the United States. I met my husband at a dance. And I remember being very comfortable with my family. I didn't have very many friends. And the bishop came one time and he said, there is going to be a dance for a young adult. And he says, you guys should come. And I thought, whatever. And so my mom said, are you going to go? And I said, nah, I don't think so. Because I didn't have any friends, and my brothers, but I wasn't very interested. And my mom said, Gigi, the bishop has taken his time to come and invite you to this thing. Go. Just be, I don't know, show a little bit of kindness or respect for his time or whatever. And I said, okay. So I did. I went, and that's the night actually that I met my husband. So this is interesting because I've realized this later, that how the Lord orchestrates things in a beautiful way. And the night that I met my husband, I remember sitting at the gym where the dance was, and I remember sitting down just watching everything. This is all new to me. The language, the style, I went to dances in Peru, but it was different. Anyway, so I'm just looking and looking, and when I looked to my right, I saw this young man going through the door, and it was, I still, when I think of that moment, it was as if he was highlighted, with spotlighted. And I thought, he is good looking, but just very, and you just keep looking, and then all of a sudden I see him, that he's approaching me. And he was trying to talk to me, and music was loud anyway, so he wanted to know if he could sit by me. Long story short, he thought that when he was passing by where all these girls were sitting down, he felt like somebody tripped him. And that's why he came back. And he says, who could it be? I wasn't. But the interesting thing about it is I understood this little magical moments as I wonder if my sister was part of all of these things, you know, the spotlight and the tripping and the whatever. Angels could do things, I guess. I don't know. But
Did you speak English by this point?
I spoke very little, very little. I could understand, but not very much. But he spoke Spanish because he had served in Bolivia.
Okay.
So, that's how things started. So of course, he wanted to practice his Spanish, and what a wonderful opportunity, right? So anyway, that's how we met, and he has been just a precious, a man of God, and so loving, and accepted also that with so much love my niece and nephew. And in fact, those kids came to live with us even before we had children. So something that I can imagine that his mother was, it was difficult for his mother at that age. What are they thinking? You know, he was going to school, and but looking back, it has been precious for my niece and nephew also, to be able to be loved and to be accepted in a family circle was so important for them. So interesting how, the decisions that we make, and then you see 40 years later the effects of it, and life changing
So
for
how
sure.
long did they live with you? The littles, yeah.
The littles, they lived with us. They probably were for a year at the beginning, but off and on they have come and lived with us. And so for different reasons, sometimes my parents or their parents, their dad actually, was working and was opening a restaurant. He was very, very busy. And so we took him, and they were with us, went to school and all of that. So anyway, it was a beautiful thing. The decisions that we've made that probably other people would think that we're crazy. And but it was the right thing to do. It was beautiful.
This kind of just goes right along with what my daughter is doing. You said your in-laws were like, what are they thinking? What are you, what are you doing? Because my daughter recently, she's got 4 little ones. Her husband decided to quit his job, so he's looking for a job. This is the beginning of December. And at the end of December, they decided to bring in his 98-year-old grandmother.
Mm.
And and as as the mom, I'm sitting there going, and she just had surgery too in November, and she was having complications with surgery. So there was just so much going on. But at the same time, even though I'm like, oh my goodness, this is so big, what you're saying is like it was the right thing to do. When
It
I
is.
pray about it, and I don't have any revelation for them at all, but at the same time, I'm praying about it because I'm worried,
Yeah.
can they handle all of this? And but yet the spirit just testifies it's the right thing to do. And that's where we just get to trust and see the Lord create these magical moments with ministering angels or whoever's on your sister and other people
Oh
on
yeah.
your side just doing it. And
Oh my
you
goodness.
have eyes to see, and that's so beautiful.
When you said we've done those things too, and we have taken care of our parents and his parents too. And the blessing that it has been to have them is eternal.
Mm.
Lives have been changed. We miss them, and we were just talking about, actually with my husband the other day, my father-in-law was the last one that lived with us. And when it's almost like the Lord gave him another chance, because my mother-in-law was always the one involved in things. My father-in-law was kind of like her shadow, and that was always very loving and supported her. But when she passed, it's almost like he had a chance to be more involved in the children's lives. And we had a place where he can do that and play that part for the grandchildren, to the point that my husband sometimes would say, when he would see his dad playing with the grandchildren on the floor building blocks or something, he would say, that's not the dad I knew. Because it's almost like the Lord gives you another chance to to connect and to complete your life, your purpose here on earth, to heal perhaps things that you didn't do before, but I feel like that's what happened with Papa. And we would go to his medical appointments and have the best chats. And my children, every week, they took him to the grocery store. They knew, I think by memory, all the things that he bought every week. And even the grandchildren, the great grandchildren. And it was so funny. I mean, every Wednesday they were ready, and there was one grandchild marching ready to take grandpa into the store. But that has been such a wonderful thing for my kids to be able to do. And there was nothing more important than be there with grandpa and serve and laugh with them and hear his stories and all those things. Sometimes he would end up with two of some of the things that he bought, because the great grandchildren already knew what kind of bread and the bread, and so they would just my father-in-law would say, Gigi, would you like this loaf of bread I got too, I guess. And but it was because the grandchildren would help. And but anyway, huge blessing. And I felt like their presence in the circle of life is very complete, and is they can see the circle of life. They know we're next. There's no one above us. It's just us, and they know what's next after us.
Those are just special moments. Those are special experiences that you
It really
can't trade
is.
for anything.
Yeah, there is nothing more precious than that. And so when you said that, it just struck a chord in my heart.
Oh, beautiful.
All right, so where was I?
I don't know. I threw you off track. But just bringing people into your home and the littles, and they were there for a year and all of that.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the part of my story as far as like being in the United States, uh loving the idea of family, the gospel essence of the family being the sacred unit in the Heavenly Father's plan. And that has been very important to us, very, very important. And everything that we've done has led us to create that kind of family, that we are actually everything we do will help us to walk to the presence of the Father. And when we have that perspective, I think it allows us to forgive. Families are not perfect, right? And we are like not just our family, but it's the extended family too. And try to strengthen also the family circle, including the extended family circle. So, and I think that that's the greatest school of life that we can have as far as preparing to meet our Savior someday, our Heavenly Father, because that's where we learn. This is the school where we learn to love, to forgive, to try one more time, to practice all the sacred principles that will lead us to His presence.
You know, when the proclamation, the family to the world, the family is ordained of God, right? And what you're teaching is correct principle. Like we are put in families, not by accident, but because we get to practice these principles. And my heart breaks for the families that are torn apart, that don't see eye to eye. And you mentioned that, when you guys joined the church, some of your extended family kind of banished you or,
Yeah.
but yet there was something in your heart. And yes, it's the church. It could be the atonement. I don't know. I want to hear from you. How were you able to forgive? How were you able to love them unconditionally, even though you weren't treated very well? Where did you receive that power? What can you tell us about that?
Um, and it wasn't that they treated us bad, but it was just kind of like that distance. We're not, it's almost like we don't belong to their team anymore, kind of a thing. But I love your question because I think it was the basic understanding that we had, especially my parents at that time, of the plan of salvation. We know where we're heading. There is a plan. So, everything else, the Lord will figure it out. Help us figure it out. I don't know how that's going to work. But I remember, like with my sister passing, something that in another, it could have been a tragedy, where my mom would have mourned the death of my sister forever. I remember being at the cemetery, standing as a family when after she was buried and everything, and my parents were greeting people, thanking people for coming and everything. I remember feeling their presence of confidence and peace. And there is nothing in the world that can give you that, but that understanding that there is something more than just this, than death. There's something greater, and this is only just we're passing from this, with this experience here on immortality. But I remember that was something that was not even spoken, but it was, I could feel that was true. And so I would say it was the plan of salvation that they gave us the guidance, a clear picture, a vision of there is something greater than this life. And
I love how you just kind of alluded to this whole idea that the Lord prepared you. Like you guys were Catholic and then there was a death in the family. So you decided to go to church a little bit more. It's just reminding. And so your hearts were prepared for when the missionaries came. And it just reminds me of
yeah,
Joseph Smith.
yeah,
He was prepared, like his parents taught him and they had visions. And so he learned certain things so that by the time the Lord wanted to speak to him, he was ready and prepared. And I'm just thinking, if I just love this perspective, if we can just kind of look back in our own lives and say, how has the Lord prepared us to receive whatever is next? Because this is very much a line upon line gospel,
yeah.
right? A little bit at a time. And that's more the norm than the big visions and whatnot. But really, you've given me something to think about. What's the Lord giving me right now that's preparing me for the next thing?
I
And
love that.
that's really opening up my mind. So thank you.
Yeah, so there are two things that I hope I can tie these things together. So when my children were teenagers, for some reason my younger ones were not there was something that they were not grasping about life. And of course, they're young, and but there's something that I felt like they needed to understand. Anyway, one day I was clearly prompted that they needed to go to South America. And this is Audie, and the one that you guys met. And when I talked to them, I talked to the friend that I actually was prompted to call, beloved friend, and her husband was my bishop when I was Audie's age at the time. Interesting. So he was the bishop again for her at that time. So anyway, and when I talked to them, they said they're ready. I said, would you go? And they said, sure. And of course, not knowing what they were going to go through. And I have to confess that in my normal mind, I probably shouldn't have sent them because it's not a safe place. And but I it's almost like the Lord blocked all my fears and just kept me just going to this. Two of my children, my precious, precious children, to go to a country that I knew was not the safest place to go to. Where they were going to live was pretty safe, but still. Anyway, that was a wonderful thing. But what I was going to tell you was that I remember the day at the airport, just minutes before they leave. And I'm thinking, what else can I tell them? What else do they need to know before they go across that bridge, you know, from the airport to the airplane? And I remember telling them, remember that I'm not going to be there. We're not going to be there with you. But the only thing that you have now is going to be the Spirit that will guide you to do always the right thing. And I mean, what else does a mother tell a child, right? And I remember watching them going to that ramp, and one with a violin and the other one with his guitar, which became very symbolic too of our experience coming to Earth. And a loving mother that has prepared you for eons of time. And this is time. And the violin and the guitar reminds me of how we were prepared with gifts and talents to go and serve. And I remember telling them, be always grateful, be helpful, love the people, be respectful, and all these things, right? I'm sure my Heavenly Mother did that to me too. And so this has been very meaningful. So here we go. Again, when we were trying to decide to go to Peru, and I was going to go with two of my granddaughters, and then, long story short, David decided to go, and now we're going with six of our grandchildren. And but I remember we had a meeting last week, and I remember telling them, I said, guys, I hope that you remember this is going to be a beautiful experience, and you have been prepared to do this. I want you to keep your mind open, your heart open, to see, you know, what the Lord wants you to see. And of course, they don't know, because some of them have been in a third world country for a little bit. And but now, you know, we're going to be with them. And I want them to see how blessed they are. And how much the Lord has blessed them with, and how important it is that they don't take those blessings for granted. So here we go again, you know, after a preparation in their lives, very musical, very talented, precious kids, and one that loves history. He's very intrigued with history, and the other one is she's a reader also, that just very intrigued with personalities and ideas, and just ask questions. Tell me another story, Grandma. Just loves that. So I think they have been prepared to see now life in another world. So, and Stephanie, you probably can relate to this, having gone to Panama, right?
Absolutely. One of the scariest things, where I literally had to go through my list of promises that God has made to find the ones to calm my heart before we left. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Gigi, what challenges have you had? Because oh gosh, you just paint this amazingly beautiful picture of the family working together and doing everything perfectly. And I know that there is so much behind the scenes, but it just comes out because it oozes out of your testimony of family. So that wasn't a criticism in any way. I'm just wondering, what kind of challenges have you had to face, and where did God come in? Where did he show up in those challenges, raising a family?
Oh goodness. Many challenges, constantly, all the time. And I think the greatest challenge that I had to overcome, or I have to overcome every day, is me. And it's just overcoming the humanness, my humanness, and recognizing cultural behavior, generational behavior. Is this serving the purpose? Again, we're heading somewhere, and is this way of reacting to something or feeling about this going to serve the greater purpose? And always try to rely on the Lord as much as I can. And so yes, challenges every day. With my husband this morning, actually, we were studying scriptures. I probably was I took life very serious, sometimes too serious. And my husband is a little bit more relaxed and more, he's a peacemaker and that, but it's almost like I was like I had an agenda, and I was um, going places, and but I had to just learn to also work with his personality, and have joy in the journey. So again, and learn to work together. That has been a beautiful thing. So loving, and with the extended family, also as other members of the family come in the family, how to love and accept as much as we can. Sometimes when things don't jive, how do you bring the love of Christ, the light of Christ in situations that could be difficult?
So
But
how do you do that? Do you have an example of something where bringing in an in-law or one of your own children, and they're not like as adults, because that's what Roseanne and I have been dealing with, but you have these adult children, and maybe they're not doing everything that you hoped that you had taught them. How do you navigate that? What
um,
advice would you give?
you know what? One of the things that was so sweet for me, I don't even know if I should say this, but you can eliminate it if you want to. Let's see, how do I go with this one? There are some things that we're very involved as a family, like family home evenings. We still have family home evenings once a month as a family. And all of the kids are very involved, especially the in-laws. Is interesting. They're very in for, as far as whatever family activity. They are very supportive, very supportive, and very loving. And sometimes okay, so differences in family. I would say one of the things that was hard for me, for example, and I know it is for many mothers, is the temple, the garments, wearing the garments. And it has become kind of a little bit of a fashion, or I don't know what you call it, where they go to the gym and do their thing, and then, they don't go back home and change to their garment, wearing their garments. And I just think that that's a very important thing, that they wear them most of the time, and instead of, having gone everything else during the whole day and then not wearing your garments. So that has been something that I have talked to my girls about, but for some reason it just, I mean, how much do you say, right? About it without creating conflict and a problem. So I told Heavenly Father, I said, I'm not going to say anything about it. I don't like that idea that sometimes they could go without wearing their garments all day, but I'm sure they will understand it from someone else. And I thought it was interesting that Adi talked about that story. I didn't know. And she has become a little bit more, I guess, mature in that sense, and understanding this is important. And I'm praying about these things, and what else can I do? And then there comes this understanding of something else that she could do better. And I thought, oh my goodness, prayers are answered in a very interesting way. So that was sweet, and I had to just step back and allow things to happen as they should, and they did. So
It's so beautiful the way that you're explaining that, because a lot of times as I turn to Heavenly Father and pray, most of the time he's telling me hands off, like don't go there, don't say anything, you know. Or if in the rare occasion when he does say something, it's one time usually, and then you just leave it alone. And that in and of itself for me has taken so much faith and trust in him that he knows, and that I'm loving this kind of theme that you're having in today's podcast is even those children, even if they don't hear or receive the, the admonition to wear garments or whatever, um, they too are being prepared. Their life's experiences are preparing them to receive who knows when they're able to do it. But not only am I being prepared with the different circumstances, they too. And Heavenly Father is in relentless pursuit of each of them and trusting that process along the way. Yeah.
for sure, for sure. And I don't know if that answers your question, Stephanie. But one thing that comes to my mind is, through the years in our marriage, we have lived every day, I would say, trying to overcome, be aware of our cultural differences, and also generational patterns of behavior, of some, of the ways that you respond to challenges or to differences, and trying to work through them every day. And we always say eternity is way too long, so we better fix things here, because I want to be excited about, that time, which we are very excited. And so we received a promise, and maybe this is why I have that mentality, that I try not to stew things for too long, and until they're fermented and is not pretty anymore. So try to fix things as we go along. And with my patriarchal blessing, it says, live a life of principles. I'll say it a little different, but live a life of principles in action, and you will be happy. And that was my fascination as a young mother. Also, I'm like, what principles? Remember, I'm a convert in the church, so I was investigating, learning, all these terminologies. And so I became very studious of principles. What are principles? And so what is it, what are the principles that we need to learn? And every morning as a mother, I would wake up with something in my mind that I needed to practice with my kids, and a principle that I needed to instill or work on. And that was the thing that we kept doing. So
Did you learn the principle yourself, or were you teaching that to your children for the
learning, I mean, it was a process of learning principles. What's the difference between principles and covenants? And so okay, so how do you internalize these principles? How do you teach these principles? How do you help them understand these principles? And it's gratitude, as love, as kindness, as prayer, all these things that just became part of my motherhood language. So maybe that helped, and that desire to work through issues along the way, instead of waiting, until they build up and things get ugly.
And so how have your covenants helped you in raising a family and making a move from Peru to the United States and 18 years old? Yes, it's extremely young, but your entire childhood was in Peru. So how did making those covenants when you were 13 and then following through with David and getting married afterward pretty young, how has that helped you with your raising your family and your grandchildren?
So covenants, again, I think we all have is something that you learn to understand little by little, and as you live and practice those covenants that you have made with the Lord, your testimony deepens. And so gradually, I think, understanding that, hey, I have a promise with the Lord. I've made a promise, I covenant with the Lord, and those covenants have also promises. And if I want those promises, I better stick to the program, and and be as faithful as I could be. And one thing that I had to learn also as a mother, sometimes you're so you want to do so many things right, because you do have a covenant with the Lord, and you want to go to the temple, and you want to obey, and tithing, and going to church, and your calling, and all these things, that sometimes you can overwhelm yourself. And I've gotten through that in that path too, and it's not good. But that helped me understand, hey, wait a minute. Sometimes it's okay to do, you do the most important thing, and no, you cannot go to the temple every week, but you go once a month and be happy. No, you cannot read all the ensign and the Leahona and the scriptures, every morning. And if you don't, then you just you're a failure. That's not true. It's okay if you read 15 minutes, a half an hour, and get the best of it. And so do the best that you can without burning yourself out, and just not even being connected with that love of God, and be happy with what you're doing, making the effort, of course, and especially doing that as the first thing in the morning, communing with the Lord, and with yourself, and then with your family. That's one thing that I also did as a young mother, is my best days always when I could read my scriptures, and and study my scriptures and then do it with my kids, do a devotional with my kids. When I didn't do the devotionals, things didn't go as well. So, and when we didn't get to the devotional, it was okay, Gigi. You're still okay. You're not a failure. So kind of working with that again, with that humanness is a challenge. So
There's so much grace along the way, right? The
yeah,
Lord looks on the heart, and as long as you're trying and whatever that looks like, but your journey of learning to be happy doing that versus being overwhelmed with all the things that we could be doing or checking off. And once again, that's that relationship um, with our Heavenly Father. It's that communion. It's that relation where we're just like, this is what I feel like I can do. And this week we're learning and Come Follow Me. Do not run faster than you have strength. Learning what that is, overcoming the humanness,
yeah.
realizing there's so much love and mercy and grace
Oh yeah.
along the way, forgiveness of our imperfections. He
Yeah.
knows, but as long as we're trying, there's so much love and mercy and grace along
For
the way.
sure. For sure. Yes.
So, Gigi, you've talked about your family, you've talked about your children when they are doing right, and then when they are not completely in line with what you hope, with your own desire to be perfect and coming short, communication, all of the different things. But with all of that, why do you stay in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints?
Having seen life, being an observant person, uh, people's lives and that in different cultures, even, I don't think there's anything better than this. It'd be crazy not to. We have a plan. This is exciting for me. I could get excited about this. And I have a very strong testimony of a savior that completes you in your humanness again. A loving father that is rooting for you every step of the way. They're real people. They are real. And I love that. I don't think that there is another place where they teach this. As a chaplain, I actually was able to explore different religions with my grandchildren too. Beautiful things that I was so excited about learning in these different religions. But I always would come back to what I believe, and I thought we can always improve. Yes, there's a lot of room to improve, but I just like, this is the best thing ever. And this is where I want to stay. And this is where I want to, I want to hold on to that idea that there is a plan, and I am working to meet my father again, just like my children, left to have an experience in another country. And we were so excited every day and just, you know, rooting for them. And I remember my daughter saying, Mom, and she was trying to learn the language and be the best, student at school. And I said, sweetie, if you stress too much, you're not going to learn what you need to learn. Just do your best. You'll be okay. We love you no matter what. And she still talks about that, but I can see a loving mother in heaven saying that to me when I want to do things so well, and I feel like I fall short on certain things. I can hear that mother's voice. Would you stop? You're doing okay, and
Um,
things will be okay. Just keep going. And that's soothing to me. And that's why I stay, because it feels so real to me. That love feels so real. And I don't question. I have studied the history of the church. I love the scriptures. And maybe that's my way of thinking. I don't doubt. I love everything.
and you have that. It just oozes from you. You can tell that it's part of you. And embraced it. And as far as I can tell, you've had this celestial thinking for a long time. You have the vision, you have the plan of salvation, you know where you're going, you have a target. And so the day-to-day things is because you have that vision. Gigi, thank you so much for sharing your story, sharing how you, the focus of family and how important that is, and your journey along the way in just loving and accepting and sharing with your children and family and helping them become the best versions of themselves with God at the helm. And I just appreciate you and your story today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. You guys keep it up. You're doing great.
Thank you so much. We have loved having you, and now the listeners get to see how amazingly beautiful you are. And to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. If you have a story, we would love for you to reach out to us at anchoredinChristpodcast@gmail.com. Let's get you on the show. If you have somebody that you should be pushing in our direction, please do. We would love to hear your story. And until next week, have a fabulous, fabulous week with the Lord.